button is.
Right. Let's make sure it's running, but
Right now?
It is, but I'll edit out the beginning. Don't worry. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of On the Rise with Enjoli. I'm Enjoli Johnson, and I sit down with young professionals in the area who are doing great things in their career, in the community, and even in their personal lives. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest for this week, and that's Eric Ortiz. So welcome, Eric. Welcome to the show.
How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here.
Appreciate the invitation. These are they've been great so far, so looking forward to hopefully contributing something of value today.
Yeah, thank you. And for you guys who don't know, Eric is one of the people as to why this is happening. So he was on me the whole time, so I had to have him on. So
I'm glad to see you got it going, by the way.
Thank you. So we could talk at length about anything, but let's first start off with your career progression. So you've had a pretty interesting career so far as a young professional, going from being an entrepreneur, I believe, owning your own sunglass business, to now being the director of sales at McKay Advertising Activation.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about your journey, just from where you started to where you are now, and the things you learned about yourself along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I started off, as Enjoli mentioned, I started off actually when I was in college. I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. I think I was selling candy in high school when I was like 15.
Nice.
So that's always been kind of a part of me to kind of generate my own income and things of that nature. So some things happened. I needed some extra cash, believe it or not, in college. Who doesn't, right? So I decided with one of my really good friends and business partners at the time, Josh, to start a sunglass business that we ran, dealt with all the manufacturing, all the development of it, packaging, logistics, marketing for it. So it really gave me kind of a first-hand experience of what being a business owner was like, and all of the different things that you might have to think about or measure. So through that time, I was making some money on the side from my sunglass business. We were doing pretty well, and then I also had a full-time job, and I was going to school. Once I graduated, it was time to kind of graduate to the big leagues in terms of a job, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's the thought process anyway. So after that, essentially, is when I kind of found the company that I'm with right now, McKay Advertising and Activation. I realized that throughout that, me owning my own business and having my own firm, of which I had to juggle so many different things.
Yeah.
One of the things that there were several, but one of the things I really, really enjoyed was the marketing piece of it, was creating my own website, was using social media, was creating blogs, was partnering with people through various events and things of that nature to kind of get our notoriety out there.
Mm-hmm.
So upon graduation from the university, go Bulls, University of South Florida, I essentially knew that I wanted to be in advertising. So kind of as I mentioned, stumbled across McKay Advertising Activation, where I still currently work. I met Bob, who's our CEO. We really hit it off right away. I think that's so vital. And I look back, I've been here for 4 years now, and I think that's one of the most important pieces that in terms of the decisions that I had to make. I had several different interviews. I was looking around at a couple of different places, a bunch of different marketing firms, and we're very forward-thinking here, which I love and enjoy, and is a huge piece of why I chose this. But also just that connection with someone who is a superior to me, that understands. I consider him a friend and a mentor, as well as my boss. So it really gave me a great growth pattern and trajectory, so to speak, because I felt comfortable with him. I could share my failures. I could share, things that I thought I did well, and he was like, you did it okay. Maybe you could work on 2 or 3 things here.
Yeah.
But it was only because I had that relationship, and he made me feel very comfortable, that I feel like I was able to have more of those conversations at an early age than maybe potentially some of my other people in my cohort did as they graduated and started to get in their jobs.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I feel like a lot of people have that difficulty of making that connection. So for some of us who may not have that really good personal or working relationship with our bosses, how would you recommend we kind of start building that?
I think You know, it's interesting. I feel like in a lot of different scenarios where people have similar questions to that, whether it's, you know, how do I start to ask my boss about, you know, what's the next step in a promotion? How do I build a relationship? You know, how do I ask a girl out on a date? Like, eventually you kind of just got to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's my belief that if you're transparent, if that individual actually cares about you and your growth, and you say, hey, look, I am here for you. I want to grow with this company. I want to grow my skills. Here are the things that I think I'm pretty good at. You know, I'm open to feedback on that. And I'm also open to feedback on what I'm not good at and what I need to be working on. And really, that's a huge piece, because you can be open to that and still not get any feedback because you weren't vocal about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or on the flip side, you can get all the feedback in the world and you're not open to any of it, and you're still in the same spot. So I think there's a balance of it, but, you know, in terms of your actual question on how to start, you know, I'll just be transparent with your boss or with whoever that mentor or person is in your life. I mean, I think a lot of the times we're looking up to those people because they've been through what we've been through.
Yeah.
So me coming to you and saying, hey, look, these are the things that I want to work on. This is how I want to get better. This is the results that I'm going to provide you for your business once I do get these tactics. As a boss, it's very difficult to say, like, I'm not going to help you here. You know what I mean? If you lay that out, if you're thoughtful about it, and you say, hey, look, there's a reason behind why I want this feedback and what I'm looking to do with it. I think the conversation becomes a lot easier, and you'll start to find that not everybody's the best at it, but I'm sure that everybody has something that they could be working on to get a little bit better.
That's great. No, that's awesome. I'm going to take some notes when I rewatch this. But also what I wanted to get in with you is that you have broken like many barriers in your career. You're young, you're a director level, and I know there's probably a lot of stigma that comes around being a young professional in the workplace, especially if you're very ambitious. So how have you kind of combated either those biases or just those things that circle in the media, saying that millennials are lazy and stuff like that?
Sure, I'm gonna answer this in a two-parter, I think.
Go ahead.
Which the first piece, I think you talked about me breaking down barriers and those types of things. I think it's much less. I'm going to be careful with how I word this. It seems much more challenging than I think in actuality it is to do those things. You know, I consider myself a very hard worker, right? That doesn't differentiate me from anybody.
Right.
Like everyone that's watching this video, everybody that's, you know, works anywhere probably thinks they're a hard worker, right? So that's just like baseline. So for me, I think what I try to do and I was able to do in my company, I would encourage you to start to do yourselves if you're not. I try to look at what are areas in which I can provide value outside of simply my role, and that's in my job description, 9 to 5. And that in itself is something kind of weird to juggle with, because, you know, you're getting paid for that job description and you're not getting paid for any of the things that are around it. But the way I see it, if I'm a manager, right, your job description is a C student to me. That's the bare minimum. You did enough to pass. But you're not going to give an A to a student who did the bare minimum. Just like I wouldn't give a promotion to someone who comes in at 9 o'clock in 1 second and then leaves at 4:59 or whatever in 58 seconds. It's probably not going to be the person I give a promotion to either. So I think there's areas where you can bring new ideas. If you can bring a speaker, bring notoriety to your organization, go get involved in the community, bring a volunteer opportunity, say, hey, there's something that we haven't thought about. I think this would boost morale. Anything that you can do that is sort of novel, or create a committee. Just went to an event last night. They talked about creating a wellness committee around mental health. I think that's a wonderful idea, an opportunity for a lot of young professionals to kind of spearhead. So I think we're a little bit more forward in the way we talk about those issues. So I guess in a nutshell, I would say find something outside of your job description that can provide value to the company, first of all, because there's some people like, oh, I came to my boss with this idea, and we're just gonna stop work at 12 o'clock on Fridays and go to the bar. It's like, okay, well, that's not helping anybody. It's not helping the business. Like, there's no real reason for me as a CEO or as a boss to say, hey, this is a good idea. But if you said something like, okay, I think we should do a company retreat, once every quarter or whatever it is, I'll design everything, I'll work with the people, we'll see if we can get it pushed in kind so you don't have to pay for it. Whatever it is that you can show that you have some skin in the game. And then on top of that, this is what I think it will do for morale. This is what I think it will do for business. This is what I think it'll do for you.
Right.
So have some sort of action item attached to that. And I think you'll start to see that more opportunities will be presented to you because you're bringing your own. So that when an opportunity comes, they're going to say, well, Eric's got 15 ideas and, we've shot down 15 of them, so we might as well give him this one, right? He's got to run with something. He's obviously got some energy.
You made a really good point of not just bringing the ideas, but the plan behind it or some sort of plan behind it because, your bosses or people superior to you are busy. They need, someone to make that decision for them instead of having to do more work for something that you want to do instead of you just going after it. So that was a really good point.
Yeah, and it's just about putting yourself in their shoes. I mean, what is important to them? What's important to their business? What's important to their specific function within that business? Because, it's a lot easier to implement a tactic if it means something that you've already thought through, as opposed to like, hey, I've got this great idea, let's figure it out together. If you spend an extra hour or two kind of designing, what questions would I ask? How do I poke a hole through this? Run it through a friend or another mentor or somebody to say, okay, here's my idea, this is what I'm thinking. And they might even give you those questions so then, you can preemptively say, here's my idea. Oh, and by the way, I know you're gonna think A, B, and C, but I already got the answers to those, and you're probably gonna go home and sleep on that, and then you're gonna come back to me with E, and I thought about that answer too. So it's just showing that little bit of preparedness, I think, in that can really assist in kind of pushing those initiatives forward.
Yeah, that's great. So the last, or almost the last thing I want to get into with you is you're extremely involved in the community, like I mentioned in the beginning. So you're vice chair of Emerging Leaders of Tampa Bay. You're a board member of Frameworks. And also, I think you just became a member of USF's Latino Community Advisory Council, if that's correct?
Correct.
So very busy, very involved. And you mentioned getting involved in something outside of your organization. So there's plenty of reasons why people will do that. But I want to know what was your reason why? What's your why to getting involved with these other organizations specifically?
I think each organization has its own specific reasons, but overarching, I needed to find something that I was passionate about. And I think, through a variety of different ways, I'm passionate about those three organizations that you just mentioned in different ways. So for instance, with Emerging Leaders of Tampa Bay, I was a new salesperson. I mean, at the end of the day, I needed to go meet business people. Here's an opportunity for me to go meet young professionals, distributed through the Chamber of Commerce here in Tampa. I can go meet as many people as I can, and that was really my only reason for starting to join. And then once I got there, and I started to meet people, and I started to understand the content that was there, and I saw the success of the individuals within that program that were around me and in my cohort and around my age, I immediately thought, okay, there's a lot of successful people here in this room, and they all look to be about my age. Like, what are they drinking? Like, where's the Kool-Aid, so to speak? Because I kind of want some myself. So I think one, for me, that specific organization, the passion around that was just the ability to surround myself with people that are supportive, that are ambitious, that are working to be better. It's something that I try to do every single day. And you'd be so surprised, how one person's negative energy can hold you back. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, you putting out all this positive energy in the world and stuff, and you want to appease to everyone. Well, at the end of the day, there's some people that you can be as positive as possible to, and they're just still going to be negative, Right. It could be a beautiful day, and you're like, man, it's gorgeous outside. I'm like, it might rain later. Okay, I know it might rain later, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
So finding that positivity, that ambition, and surrounding myself with those people, it just raises all ships. I think, that old verbiage, rising tide raises all ships. I think is completely accurate there. For frameworks of Tampa Bay, they're for anyone who doesn't know, they're a nonprofit organization that essentially assists Hillsborough County school teachers learn social and emotional learning. So think of that, if you're not familiar with social and emotional learning, think of that as kind of emotional intelligence on steroids. So it's a more comprehensive program. There's plenty of national organizations surrounding this. To be honest with you, for that organization, I find social and emotional learning to be absolutely crucial in any role, in any job, in any particular sector or business in life. You need to be able to relate to people. So like I said earlier, I think I'm a hard worker. I don't think I'm the hardest worker in the world, right? There's people that are insomniacs and they don't sleep. I think I'm decently intelligent. I don't think I'm Einstein either. So like, what can I do to differentiate myself? And I think a lot of what I have done that has been successful has been develop relationships. So I'm consistent, I'm there, they know me, they trust me, they know that they're gonna get the same Eric every single time. So I think a portion of that, if we can start to divert the attention to the youth that are gonna be the next leaders of the world, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
How do we start to instill those values early in them so that they can be more productive throughout their life, not just in business, but through the relationships that they develop later on, and being able to handle their emotions and things of that nature, I think is absolutely crucial. And so the last one, and I promise I'll stop rambling, is for the Latino Community Advisory Committee through University of South Florida. I had the pleasure of an honor of being asked to sit on that committee, which essentially advocates at the University of South Florida for equality for all Latino students, as well as vendors and faculty, which is actually a point that I didn't even really think about until I had sat down with them. It's not just about the students that are in there, it's about how do we advocate for Latinos, which I think is something very, very close to my heart. I'm Puerto Rican myself. Both my parents grew up, went to college on the island, and I try to be a good representation of kind of a success from the minority category. And I hope that throughout my efforts, in time, whether it be through that organization volunteering or setting up the scholarship funds or choosing those folks or advocating towards the administration at USF, that we can continue to push that topic forward. It's something obviously very crucial to me and personal to my heart. And we just have so many Latinos here in the Tampa Bay area that it's crucial that we engage them because there's so many that don't quite get that same level of enthusiasm when it comes to attending university, or maybe they don't think they have the support that they really do. So just kind of advocating for them, providing another voice, and hopefully generating the next level of the next cohort of Hispanic leaders.
That's wonderful. That's perfect. You're just doing great. I think your parents would be really proud of you. Or they are really proud of you.
I hope so. I really do. I can't tell, but if you're watching, hi mom, hi dad. No, I'm really happy. They've in all seriousness, they've really given me a great foundation and continued to push me quite heavily, no matter what I was doing, to be better. Always thinking about how I can be better and how I can give back. So any minor successes I've had in my life, I definitely give it up to them.
Nice. Well, perfect. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, so we're just going to end with some questions that I ask almost every guest, a few. So the first one is, we live in Tampa, so what's one place in Tampa that you would recommend people visiting or doing?
Ooh, food or just anything?
Anything.
Wow.
Or you can pick a food and an activity if you want.
Okay. I would say, that's a good one. Okay, so I would say for food, if you've never had a Cuban sandwich from Michelle Fallos in the Heights, highly recommended. Highly recommended. Delicious. In terms of something to do, if you've never been to Tampa before, I highly encourage you to get out to Ybor City. I think it's kind of a staple here in Tampa, so you might think that you know everything about Ybor City, but there's been so much development over the past couple of years. Our offices are here, so we see it firsthand every day. There's so much culture. There's so many, live musicians or artists. I just bought like a ink painting off like a random person that was down the street the other day. Yeah, it was, gorgeous. She's like, I'll do a painting for you right now. I'm like, let's see it. It was awesome, so I ended up buying it. So I would say there's a lot of little hole-in-the-wall places and stuff like that within Ybor City that I think can really, really speak to kind of the soul of Tampa Bay, so to speak.
Nice. I love Ybor. It's a great place.
It really is.
Next question. So we don't succeed alone. So who are 2 or 3 people in your tribe that have helped you get here today?
Oh man, there's way too many to give credit, so I'm sorry whoever's watching this video that I forgot, because I'm sure I will forget someone. But if I had to narrow it down to 2 or 3, I'm gonna lump my parents into one.
Okay.
I think, like I said, I think they've done a tremendous job at setting a great example for me. Both of them master's degrees, first ones in their family and stuff, and being able, my mother, working with 3 kids, working full time while my father was away. He was in the military, so just always instilled that work ethic in me, and really that no excuses mentality of the military, which I think it's really was frustrating as a child, but has certainly helped me. I would say outside of that, I definitely have so many mentors in business that I have sought out. To be completely clear, it's not just like they suddenly appeared at my doorstep. It certainly took work and effort and energy on my part. But I'm actually going to rewind a little bit and say one of the most influential people to me was one of my professors at the University of South Florida, Dr. Lloyd Pettigrew. I think for the first time in my life, there was a professor that actually liked me. I was very talkative and didn't like to do my classwork, but I could do my tests pretty well, so teachers didn't like that. And I think he was one of the first people that got me and was able to kind of give me a little shtick here and there, because he knew I could take it and he knew I could do more. Whereas the other teachers would kind of be condescending towards me or be like, oh, why are you so lazy? He's like, Eric, okay, like you can do a lot more than this. Like, no, I'm not going to take that for an answer. That's not okay. Like, go back and do it again. And I really developed a strong relationship with him over the 3 years that I took courses. And he's a large part of that I got the job today. He wrote my recommendation letter. I still talk to him pretty consistently. He invited me to sit on an undergraduate advisory board for the communications department. It's just been really just a great relationship that we've stemmed over time. And I think he's really opened my eyes to, almost kind of what we were talking about earlier. Your job description is a C student.
Yeah.
And, letting me know, he's like, Eric, it's great here that you can, get past my class and you can, get a good grade on the test.
Right.
But eventually that's going to bite you in the business world. And, it's going to bite you in your back pocket or in your wallet, you know what I mean? And you're going to say something wrong to a client and you weren't prepared or you didn't do this on the right time or whatever that is. And I think he really started to show me a little bit more responsibility towards those actions that I was making. So now I try as much as I can to be triply prepared for meetings and such, because Dr. P wasn't going to have it when I was in college.
Awesome. Shout out to Dr. P. And last question. So if you could go back in time to where you really needed help or a friend or a shoulder, what advice would you give to yourself?
If I could go back to where I needed help, I would say any time that I've been in a weird situation or I felt like it was difficult for me, the number one thing for me to do is lean on my support system. And I would just continue to tell myself to do that. I try to be independent. I try to do things myself. I want to come to you and say, like, here was the problem, but here's how I fixed it,
Right.
as opposed to just here's the problem. And I think at times that can lead you down paths to nowhere. When you try to be too independent and try to figure out everything by yourself. My dad used to say all the time, basically, so if you're walking through a minefield and you see a guy on the other side of the minefield, like, wouldn't you want to ask him where a couple of the mines are? And even if I just miss one, it's worth the conversation. Right? So, developing that support group around you and finding that network and finding those people who want to help you and want you to succeed, and then actually utilizing them when you get into those situations and it's not you against the world. There's, I think a lot of people tend to feel like that, especially when they first get into business and things like that. But, from experience, I think if you can start to develop that network and actually utilize them, you'd be so surprised how easily some of these problems can go away, or they can help find a solution, or use their network to help you find the person for that solution.
Right.
So I think not being scared to ask for help would really be my biggest piece of advice to myself.
Nice. That's perfect. Well, Eric, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. This was wonderful. I hope everyone learned. I learned a lot, so I hope everyone learned a lot from you today.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. The best of luck. It warms my heart to see you here doing this, and all the success in the future. I'm sure you'll have much better guests than me here soon.
No. Oh my goodness. Before you jet off, where can people find you?
So you can find me, my LinkedIn is Eric Ortiz, Ortiz, and that's Eric with a C, not a K. Shout out to the Starbucks people who get that wrong all the time. My email is Eric, ERIC, at McKayAdvertising.com, MCKAY advertising.com. If you have any questions about advertising or about your businesses, please feel free to shoot me a note, and I'd be happy to discuss things.
Great. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you another time. Bye.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Shaba.